The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the audience was buzzing with anticipation. Samantha, a young and ambitious journalist, stood in the center of the studio, her eyes narrowed with determination. She was about to do the unthinkable, ambush the legendary Mike Tyson during a live televised interview, expecting a sensational confrontation that would propel her to stardom. Tyson, the former heavyweight champion known for his fierce temper and intimidating presence, sat across from Samantha, his gaze steady and unreadable. The tension in the air was palpable as the interview began, and Samantha wasted no time in launching her attack. "Mr. Tyson," she began, her voice dripping with a false sense of politeness, "you've had a reputation for being a volatile and aggressive individual. I'm sure our audience is wondering if you've truly changed, or if you're just putting on an act for the cameras." The words hung in the air, and Samantha leaned forward, ready for the explosion she anticipated. But to her surprise, Tyson's response was not what she had expected. "You know, when I was younger, I was a very different person," Tyson said, his voice low and calm. "I was filled with anger and rage, and I let that control my life. But as I've grown older, I've learned to let go of that anger and find peace within myself." Samantha blinked, taken aback by Tyson's unexpected answer. She had expected a fiery retort, not this self-reflective introspection. "So you're telling me that the Mike Tyson we all knew and feared is gone?" Samantha pressed, her tone skeptical. Tyson nodded, his eyes softening. "That's right. The old Mike Tyson is gone. I've been through a lot in my life, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned from them, and I've grown as a person." Samantha found herself at a loss for words, the interview taking an unexpected turn. She had come prepared to expose Tyson as a fraud, but now she found herself captivated by his gentle demeanor and the sincerity in his voice. As the interview progressed, Tyson continued to surprise Samantha and the audience. He spoke openly about his troubled past, his battles with addiction, and his journey to find inner peace. His words were not those of a brash and angry man, but of a deeply introspective individual who had faced his demons and emerged stronger for it. Samantha found herself drawn in, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to a sense of wonder and respect. She realized that she had underestimated Tyson, and that the man before her was not the same one she had read about in the headlines. By the time the interview drew to a close, Samantha and the audience were left in stunned silence. The confrontation they had anticipated never materialized, and instead they had been witness to a powerful and unexpected transformation. As Tyson stood to leave, he turned to Samantha and placed a hand on her shoulder.
"I hope you'll remember this interview," he said, his voice soft and sincere. "Because it's a reminder that people can change, and that there's always hope for those who are willing to do the hard work." Samantha could only nod, her mind racing with the implications of Tyson's words. As the cameras stopped rolling and the lights dimmed, she knew that this interview had the power to redefine not just Tyson's public image, but her own preconceptions about the world. Here is the continuation of the story, with a shocking twist. As Tyson left the studio, Samantha sat in stunned silence, her mind reeling from the unexpected turn of events. She had come into this interview expecting a sensational confrontation, but instead, she had witnessed a profound transformation. A man who had once been known for his ferocity and aggression, now speaking with remarkable vulnerability and wisdom. Samantha knew that this interview could be a career-defining moment for her. Rather than the explosive drama she had anticipated, she had been given a rare glimpse into the inner workings of a complex and multifaceted individual. She felt a newfound respect for Tyson and a desire to delve deeper into his story. As she gathered her notes and prepared to leave, Samantha's phone suddenly buzzed with an urgent message from her editor. "Turn on the TV now," the message read. Puzzled, Samantha hurried to the nearest television set, her heart racing. On the screen, a breaking news report unfolded, and Samantha's breath caught in her throat. Tyson, the man she had just interviewed, had been involved in a horrific car accident. Eyewitnesses reported that his vehicle had collided with another car, resulting in multiple casualties. Samantha felt her world tilt on its axis. How could this be? Just moments ago, Tyson had been standing before her, calm and reflective, speaking about his journey of personal growth and redemption. And now, he was at the center of a tragedy that would undoubtedly shatter the carefully crafted image he had worked so hard to build. As the news coverage continued, Samantha learned that the other vehicle involved in the accident had been carrying a family, a husband, wife, and their 2 young children. The reports were grim, with the authorities confirming that the family had perished at the scene. Samantha's heart sank, and she felt a wave of nausea wash over her. This was not the outcome she had expected, nor the one she had been prepared to report. The interview that had seemed so promising now felt tainted, tinged with a darkness that threatened to consume her. She knew she had to act quickly, to try and understand what had happened and how this could have occurred. Reaching out to her contacts, Samantha desperately sought more information, hoping against hope that there had been some mistake, some misunderstanding. But as the details emerged, the truth became increasingly clear.
Tyson had been driving under the influence of alcohol, his judgment impaired, when the tragic accident had occurred. The man who had so eloquently spoken about his journey of transformation and redemption had, in a moment of recklessness, destroyed the lives of an innocent family. Samantha felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just for herself, but for the audience who had been captivated by Tyson's words. She had allowed herself to be drawn in, to see him as a changed man, when in reality, the darkness that had once defined him still lurked beneath the surface. As the news of the accident spread, the public's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Tyson's carefully cultivated image lay in ruins, and the outrage and grief that followed threatened to consume him. Samantha found herself at the center of a media storm, with everyone demanding answers and seeking to understand how this tragedy could have occurred. In the midst of the chaos, Samantha knew that her own credibility was on the line. She had been the one to conduct the interview, the one who had been captivated by Tyson's words. And now she was faced with the devastating realization that she had been fooled, that the man she had come to respect was capable of such a horrific act. As she sat in the studio, the cameras still rolling and the world watching, Samantha knew that this was a moment that would forever change the course of her career and her life. The future was uncertain, and the consequences of this shocking twist were yet to be fully realized. But one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. Here is a new 800-word chapter that continues the story with a shocking twist. The news of Mike Tyson's involvement in the deadly car accident spread like wildfire, sparking outrage and disbelief across the country. Samantha sat in the studio, her hands trembling, as she tried to process the devastating turn of events. Just moments ago, she had been captivated by Tyson's words, his heartfelt admission of personal growth and redemption. Now, that carefully crafted image lay in ruins, replaced by the horrific reality of his actions. As the cameras rolled, Samantha took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice wavering with emotion. I can't believe what's happened. Just earlier tonight, I sat across from Mike Tyson, and he seemed like a changed man. He spoke so eloquently about his journey of self-discovery, about finding peace and letting go of his past anger. And now, this. She paused, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. A family is dead because of his reckless decision to drive under the influence. It's a tragedy that will haunt all of us who were taken in by his words, who wanted to believe in his transformation. Samantha's editor, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly interjected. Samantha, I know this must be incredibly difficult for you, given the nature of your interview, but the public is demanding answers.
What do you make of this shocking turn of events? Samantha took a deep breath, her mind racing. I'm honestly not sure what to make of it. I truly believed that Tyson had changed, that he had found a way to overcome his demons. But now, it's clear that the darkness within him never truly went away. His actions have shattered the lives of an innocent family, and they've also shattered the faith that so many of us had in his redemption. She paused, her voice wavering with emotion. I can't help but wonder, was everything he said to me a lie? Was it all just an act, a carefully crafted facade to hide the fact that he was still the same volatile and reckless individual he had always been? The editor leaned forward, his eyes filled with a sense of urgency. Samantha, I know this must be an incredibly difficult time for you, but the public deserves to know the truth. What can you tell us about your interaction with Tyson, and how you think this tragedy could have been prevented? Samantha felt a lump in her throat as she considered the weight of her words. I don't know. I truly believed that Tyson had changed, that he had found a way to overcome his past. But now, it's clear that the darkness within him never truly went away. His actions have shattered the lives of an innocent family, and they've also shattered the faith that so many of us had in his redemption. She paused, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. As for how this could have been prevented, I wish I had the answer. If only I had seen the signs, if only I had been more vigilant, maybe I could have done something to stop this tragedy from occurring. Samantha's editor leaned back in his chair, his expression solemn. Samantha, I know this must be an incredibly difficult time for you, but the public deserves the truth, and they're looking to you to provide it. What can you tell us about the man you interviewed, and how his actions have shattered the trust of so many? Samantha took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult words she knew she had to say. The Mike Tyson I interviewed was not the Mike Tyson we all thought we knew. He was a man who had clearly worked hard to overcome his past, to find a sense of peace and redemption. But in the end, it was all a facade, a carefully constructed lie to hide the fact that the darkness within him had never truly gone away. She paused, her voice trembling with emotion. And now, because of his reckless actions, an innocent family has paid the ultimate price. I can't help but feel responsible, in a way, for allowing myself to be drawn in by his words, for believing way he had truly changed. But the truth is, he was still the same volatile and dangerous individual he had always been. Samantha's editor leaned forward, his expression grave. Samantha, I know this must be an incredibly difficult time for you, but the public deserves the truth, and they're looking to you to provide it.
What can you tell us about the man you interviewed, and how his actions have shattered the trust of so many? Samantha took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult words she knew she had to say. The Mike Tyson I interviewed was not the Mike Tyson we all thought we knew. He was a man who had clearly worked hard to overcome his past, to find a sense of peace and redemption. But in the end, it was all a facade, a carefully constructed lie to hide the fact that the darkness within him had never truly gone away. She paused, her voice trembling with emotion. And now, because of his reckless actions, an innocent family has paid the ultimate price. I can't help but feel responsible, in a way, for allowing myself to be drawn in by his words, for believing that he had truly changed. But the truth is, he was still the same volatile and dangerous individual he had always been. Samantha's words hung in the air, the weight of their implications palpable. As she sat in the studio, the camera still rolling, she couldn't help but wonder what other shocking revelations might yet emerge from this tragic. Here is a new 800-word chapter that continues the story with a shocking plot twist. The aftermath of the tragedy was devastating. As the news of Tyson's involvement in the fatal car crash spread, the public outcry was deafening. Samantha found herself at the center of a media firestorm, with everyone demanding answers and seeking to understand how this could have happened. In the days that followed, new information began to emerge that cast an even darker shadow over the entire incident. Investigators had discovered that the car Tyson was driving had been reported stolen just hours before the accident. Samantha's heart sank as she heard the news. Could it be true? Had Mike Tyson, the man she had interviewed and believed to be a changed individual, been involved in a heinous crime as well as a deadly accident? As the details unfolded, the truth became even more disturbing. It was revealed that the stolen car Tyson had been driving had belonged to the very family that had been killed in the crash. The innocent victims were not just strangers, but had been the unwitting targets of Tyson's reckless and criminal actions. Samantha felt sick to her stomach. She had been so convinced of Tyson's transformation, so certain that he had found redemption. But now, it seems that the darkness within him had never truly been vanquished. Instead, it had only been lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the opportunity to emerge in the most horrific of ways. The public's reaction was one of outrage and disbelief. How could a man who had once been hailed as a hero, a symbol of resilience and overcoming adversity, now be responsible for such a heinous act?
The trust that had been placed in him had been utterly shattered.
Samantha found herself at the center of the storm, with everyone questioning her judgment and her ability to accurately assess Tyson's character. Accusations flew, with many claiming that she had been duped, that she had allowed herself to be manipulated by Tyson's carefully crafted persona. But Samantha refused to remain silent. She knew that she had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. In a series of interviews and statements, she laid bare the details of her interaction with Tyson, recounting the sincerity and vulnerability he had displayed during their conversation. "I truly believed that he had changed," Samantha said, her voice wavering with emotion. "I saw a man who had grappled with his demons and emerged stronger for it. But now it's clear that the darkness within him never truly went away. He betrayed the trust of so many, and he's responsible for a horrific tragedy that has devastated an entire family." As Samantha's words echoed through the media, the public response was a mix of sympathy and condemnation. Some lauded her honesty and her willingness to confront the truth, while others accused her of being complicit in Tyson's crimes. But Samantha refused to be cowed by the criticism. She knew that she had a responsibility to the victims, to the public, and to her own integrity as a journalist. She continued to speak out, to demand accountability, and to shine a light on the disturbing truth that had been uncovered. In the midst of the media storm, a new development emerged that would further complicate the already tangled web of this tragedy. Investigators revealed that the stolen car Tyson had been driving had been linked to a larger criminal enterprise, one that stretched far beyond the bounds of his own personal actions. Samantha's eyes widened as she processed the implications. Could it be that Tyson's involvement in the accident and the theft of the car were just the tip of the iceberg? Were there darker forces at play, forces that had been manipulating and exploiting Tyson for their own nefarious purposes? The revelation sent shockwaves through the public and the media alike. Suddenly, the narrative shifted, and the focus turned to unraveling the larger mystery that lay at the heart of this tragedy. As Samantha delved deeper into the investigation, she found herself confronted with a web of deceit, corruption, and a level of darkness that she had never imagined. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that the truth she had been seeking was far more complex and sinister than she could have ever anticipated. With every new lead and revelation, Samantha found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. The Mike Tyson she had interviewed, the man she had believed to be on a path of redemption, was now inextricably linked to a criminal underworld that stretched far beyond the bounds of his own actions. As the investigation continued, Samantha knew that she was treading on dangerous ground. The forces she was up against were powerful, and they would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. But she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With a growing sense of trepidation, Samantha knew that the next step in this twisted tale would be the most perilous yet. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, and the stakes had never been higher. But she was committed to seeing this through, even if it meant risking everything she had. Here's a new 800-word chapter that continues the story with a shocking plot twist. As Samantha delved deeper into the investigation, she found herself descending into a rabbit hole of deceit and corruption that seemed to have no end. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that the truth she had been seeking was far more complex and sinister than she could have ever imagined. The revelation that Tyson's involvement in the fatal car crash was linked to a larger criminal enterprise had sent shockwaves through the public and the media. Suddenly, the focus had shifted from Tyson's personal redemption to the dark forces that had been manipulating and exploiting him. Samantha knew she was treading on dangerous ground, but she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She spent countless hours poring over evidence, chasing leads, and connecting the dots, all while fending off threats and intimidation tactics from those who clearly had something to hide. And then, just when she thought she was close to a breakthrough, Samantha stumbled upon a piece of information that would forever change the course of her investigation. It started with a simple phone call from a source she had been cultivating for weeks. The voice on the other end was shaky, laced with fear, but the information they shared was nothing short of explosive. "Samantha, you need to get out of this," the source whispered urgently. "They're onto you. They know what you're digging into, and they won't stop until they silence you." Samantha felt her heart rate quicken, her mind racing with the implications of what she was being told. "Who's they?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and Samantha could practically feel the fear radiating from her source. "The police," they finally said, the words barely audible. "The cops are the ones behind all of this."
Samantha's blood ran cold. She had been working closely with the authorities, providing them with the information she had uncovered, trusting that they were as committed to finding the truth as she was. But now, the very people she had thought were her allies were revealed to be the enemy. "Are you sure about this?" Samantha asked, her voice trembling. "Positive," the source replied. "They're all in on it, Samantha, from the top brass all the way down. This goes deeper than you can imagine."
Samantha sat in stunned silence, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just learned. If the police were involved in a vast criminal conspiracy, then everything she had believed about the investigation was called into question. Suddenly, she felt a wave of fear wash over her. If the police were the ones behind this, then she was in grave danger. They would stop at nothing to protect their secrets, and Samantha knew that she had become a threat that they couldn't afford to let live. Without hesitation, Samantha began to make a plan. She knew she had to get out of the city, to disappear before the police could find her. But as she gathered her belongings and prepared to leave, a troubling thought crossed her mind. What if her source was wrong? What if this was all just an elaborate ruse to throw her off the trail, to make her doubt the very investigation she had been so dedicated to? Samantha paused, her hand trembling as she reached for the door. She couldn't afford to make a mistake, not when her life was on the line. But if she was right, and the police were truly the ones behind this, then she had to act quickly before they caught up to her. With a deep breath, Samantha made her decision. She would trust her instincts, the same ones that had led her this far. She would disappear, but not before she found a way to expose the truth and bring those responsible to justice. As she slipped out into the night, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The streets seemed to echo with an eerie silence, and every shadow held the potential for danger. She knew that she was walking a tightrope, with the slightest misstep potentially leading to her undoing. But Samantha was determined. She had come too far to back down now, and she wasn't about to let the corrupt forces that had manipulated Tyson and destroyed innocent lives win. She would fight, no matter the cost, and she would uncover the truth, even if it meant risking everything she had. As she disappeared into the night, she couldn't help but wonder what other shocking revelations might yet emerge from this twisted tale. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. The stakes had never been higher, and the future was anything but certain. Here is the final 800-word chapter that concludes the story. Well, that's where the whole crazy story ended up. It was a wild ride, that's for sure. When Samantha got that tip from her source about the cops being involved, she knew she had to get out of town fast. She couldn't trust anyone, not even the people she thought were on her side. So she packed up and disappeared, going completely off the grid. It was risky, but she couldn't take any chances. She knew the cops were after her, and they wouldn't stop until they silenced her for good. Samantha spent weeks on the run, bouncing from one safe house to another, always looking over her shoulder. It was exhausting, but she was determined to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice. She started digging deeper, following the trail of breadcrumbs and trying to piece together the bigger picture. And let me tell you, what she found was straight up shocking. Turns out the whole thing went way higher up than anyone could have imagined. The cops were in cahoots with a massive criminal organization, and they were using Tyson as a pawn in their twisted game. Samantha couldn't believe it. All this time, she thought Tyson was the bad guy, when really, he was just another victim. The cops had been manipulating him, pushing him to commit those horrible crimes, and then covering it all up. It was a web of deceit that ran deep. But Samantha wasn't about to let them get away with it. She started reaching out to trusted allies, people she knew she could count on. Together, they hatched a plan to expose the truth and take down the corrupt system. It was risky, and Samantha knew she was putting her life on the line. But she was done being afraid. She was ready to fight. So she went back to the city, ready to face whatever the cops threw at her. And let me tell you, they came at her hard. There were chases, shootouts, the whole 9 yards. It was like something out of an action movie. But Samantha was smart, and she was tenacious. She managed to stay one step ahead of them, gathering evidence and building her case. And when the time was right, she went public with everything she had uncovered. The fallout was massive. The public was outraged, the media was in a frenzy, and the cops were scrambling to cover their tracks.
but Samantha stood her ground, refusing to back down. She was going to see this thing through to the end, no matter what. In the end, it all came crashing down. The corrupt cops and their criminal empire were exposed, and Tyson was finally cleared of the charges that had been unfairly placed on him. It was a victory, but it came at a heavy price. Samantha had lost a lot in her quest for the truth, her job, her reputation, even almost her life, but she didn't regret a single thing. She knew that what she had done was right, that she had stood up for justice and for the victims who had been wronged. As for Tyson, well, he was a changed man. The whole ordeal had shaken him to his core, and he was determined to turn his life around. He became a vocal advocate for criminal justice reform, using his platform to speak out against the corruption and abuse of power that had nearly destroyed him. And Samantha? She became a hero, a symbol of courage and integrity in a world that often seemed to value power and greed over truth and justice. People looked to her as an inspiration, a reminder that one person can make a difference, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. It wasn't an easy road, and there were plenty of times when Samantha doubted herself and wondered if it was all worth it.
But in the end, she knew that she had done the right thing. She had stood up for what she believed in, and she had made a real difference in the world. And that's how it all went down, my friend. A wild ride from start to finish, filled with twists and turns and more than a few surprises. But in the end, the good guys won, and justice was served. It's a story that'll stick with you, that's for sure. One for the ages, if you ask me. So there you have it, the conclusion to the crazy saga of Samantha, Mike Tyson, and the web of corruption that threatened to swallow them both. It was a hell of a ride, but in the end, the truth prevailed. And that's what really matters, isn't it?